human form. Welcome back to the Paladin Archives, where we explore monsters from all over fiction. This year, we're taking an in-depth look at vampires on our show, Monster Menagerie! Yes, it's time once again to delve into the dark depths of the unseen world, and this month, if you haven't figured it out already, I'm focusing on that amazing show from Taika Waititi, What We Do in the Shadows. And, more specifically, our vampire of the month is none other than Nandor the Relentless. Oh, we're gonna have fun this month. Like some of our other vampires, I'll be looking not only at Nandor himself, but his little coven, including Nadja, Laszlo, and of course Guillermo. Oh, and I can't forget Colin Robinson. Now the show, at the time of this video uploading, is on its 4th season, but man, I can't do all that in an observation, not if I want time to do anything else this month. So we're going to be restricting our observations this month to only season 1 of What We Do in the Shadows. Anything we learn in the movie or other seasons is off limits. But trust me, I think we have plenty to play with today. Before we get too far into it, I'd like to ask a quick favor. Please, if you would, swing on by MatthiasTautimas.com. The link is down in the description. All of this, the archives, Monster Menagerie, it all circles around a world created by author Matthias Tautimas. And if you head to his website, you can check out some sample chapters from book 1 and see some amazing work from artist Prissy. Like this lovely new piece of Paladin Knight Giz Johansson. Isn't she awesome? So swing on by and take a look. The debut novel, The Paladin, is going to be coming out soon, but we're always looking for beta readers for it and the sequels. Thanks for that little indulgence. Now, let's get back to analyzing Nandor. Nandor was born in 1262 in the now-dissolved country of Al-Qolidar, in what is modern-day Iran. He was a fierce warrior, which earned him the title of the Relentless, having turned the Euphrates red with the blood of his enemies, twice.
They would call me Nandor the Relentless, because I just never relent.
We know he had 37 wives, and around that time he became a vampire. Apparently his lifestyle as a blood-sucking nightwalker led to all of his wives leaving him. His history since then is spotty, at least in season 1. We know at some point he met up with Nadja and Laszlo, a vampire couple, and the three of them voyaged together across the sea to the New World around 200 years ago. Once there, they arrived in Staten Island and stayed there until present day. Why?
It is where the boat dropped us off.
The three of them went in on a cozy manner, but picked up a few roommates along the way because, hey, rent's expensive, man. First, they have the 4th vampire of their group, Colin Robinson. He's
what's known as a psychic vampire or energy vampire.
Long story short, he's a daywalker that feeds off emotions by either boring or enraging his victims. Lastly, we have Guillermo, the familiar of Nandor. Now, while Nadja and Laszlo technically have one, she's killed off almost immediately in the series, and I cannot remember her name to save my life. Guillermo, however, is much more of a fixture. He tends to Nandor's needs, cleans the house, purchases supplies, and helps his master locate victims. He dreams of being turned into a vampire someday, but after 10 long years of service, it's yet to happen. I'm sure it'll happen in season 2, right? From there, our band of misfit vampires basically just tries to survive modern-day Staten Island while a documentary crew films their days, or nights. We don't get a lot more about Nandor, other than he's sired over 200,000 living offspring, and he's a huge fan of the 1992 Olympic Dream Team. Beyond that, he's been tasked, along with his roommates, with taking over Staten Island. Or the entire New World? It's not quite clear, and even he isn't that interested in it.
Oh, I guess we're conquering the new world now.
Despite Despite his title of the Relentless, Nandor is actually quite laid back. He complains and occasionally threatens, but for the most part, he doesn't really seem to have an aggressive bone in his undead body. Something that will bode well for any paladins meeting him. Like all vampires in this series, he has a distinct disregard for humanity. While he won't go out of his way to murder people, he does live off the blood of humans, especially virgins if he can get them. When he goes before the Staten Island City Council to demand their surrender to him, they tell him to come back in 2 months when the council is doing an open session. He immediately agrees to this without a fuss. Now, he does seem to occasionally show some concern for his familiar, Guillermo, but it's rare. Most of the time he looks at him as a lesser being, someone not worth paying attention to unless he can pin his mistakes on him. And yet, when push comes to shove, despite it being a very toxic relationship with Guillermo clearly getting the short end of the stick, Nandor does seem to harbor some affection for his little familiar. In his own way.
Mexican
Piñata farm.
piñata farmers.
There's nothing to be ashamed of. People love piñatas.
If we include the rest of the house, we see a definite pattern evolve. For one, none of the vampires bother to keep up to date with modern times. If specific things interest them, they may make exceptions, but overall, they're stuck in the past. From their dress to their language to their ideals, everything about them operates in the 1800s. Guillermo is essential to keeping the group updated and functional with the modern world, along with their fourth, Colin Robinson. Nandor is referred to as a fierce warrior, though even his roommates will say he's not particularly intelligent.
He's blessedly unburdened with the complications of a university education.
Still, despite that, Nandor is capable of brief moments of surprising cleverness. For instance, when he fights the duel against the werewolves, he picks a squeaky toy as his weapon, tricking the werewolf into jumping off the building. Overall, though, he tends toward getting himself into worse trouble rather than getting out of it. Like the last episode, I'm going to break this into 2 parts. The powers we see Nandor use, and the powers he's insinuated to have that the other vampires use. It seems that with the exception of invisibility, which only Nadja's little vampire fledgling seems to display, all the vampires share the same pool of power, just with variances in their level of mastery. For instance, Laszlo seems to be the best at hypnosis, though all 3 of them use it. I won't be going over Colin Robinson, as he's practically a different species, barely a vampire. Let's go over the basics. We've got some pyromancy, flight, transforming into a mist, transforming into a bat, transforming into a dog, hypnotism, oh, and one of my favorites, a sort of long-distance telepathic hypnosis.
I call out to you through the ether,
After prepping him in person, Nandor's able to later whisper to him across the city and impart psychic commands. All he seems to need is his victim's name and he's good to go.
Hi, Doc.
I do want to point out that his hypnosis does seem to have limits. Nandor specifically seems to be the least talented hypnotist out of the group, variously attributing his failure to enchant other people to either them not having souls or, well, I'll let Nandor explain.
Just you can't hypnotize a subject that doesn't want to do something that you want them to do.
Like Louis, I don't get a good sense of Nandor's strength. He can carry Guillermo while flying and hold him while he's dusting, but we don't really get any other big shows of strength. Also, like Louis, we could look at his lack of strength to get an idea, but well, there's an issue with that too. I was considering checking out the time he got locked in an animal cage, or when his coffin lid got stuck, but honestly, I'm more inclined to attribute his inability to escape to lack of, thought, rather than lack of strength. As for speed, well, they can make short bursts, little dashes, not unlike Louis and his vampire crew, but we never see anything sustained. Still, we can try to ballpark a speed here. Let's take a look at this scene where Laszlo zooms from the camera over to the stack of garbage cans to attempt to deal with some raccoons. It's one of the clearest scenes I can find of them doing that little vampire whoosh thing. Unfortunately, I can't get a good measure of how far he's traveling, so these are going to be some real back-of-the-napkin numbers. From starting position to the trash cans, let's call that 15 feet? Nah, let's say 20 feet, just to be generous. Better to overestimate. From the time Laszlo's power makes a sound and he starts moving until the time he appears by the trash cans, it's about 10 frames. At 30 frames per second, that means he's made the distance in 1/3 of a second. Simple enough math means if we extend that out to a full second, he's going 60 feet. So that puts us around 18.288 meters per second or 65 kilometers per hour. And for our US viewers, that's almost 41 miles per hour. That's actually better than Edward, funnily enough. I don't know if they can do it for sustained periods, but he's essentially moving faster than Racehorse Secretariat did when they set the record at the Belmont Stakes. Belmont Stakes. Perfect reference for this vampire analysis. But yes, he's probably pretty fast. Not mind-blowing, but probably handy in a fight. Now, let's switch over to the list of powers we see his friends do that seem reasonably within his wheelhouse as well. We have wall crawling, which we see Nadja display on a few occasions and even teaches to her newly transformed vampireling. We've got rapid healing on display from Laszlo, though it was only a minor raccoon bite. We don't really see any significant damage get healed. In that same scene, we also see animal hypnosis? Laszlo literally pulls a Pied Piper and lures a bunch of those raccoons together to slaughter them. We've got telekinesis from Nadja, though this might only work on doors, along with a weird sort of telepathy? A sort of past life regression. Basically, in this world, reincarnation is a thing, and Nadja let her side lover, Gregor/Jeff, relive his past lives to help him remember her. Oh, and she also turns into a huge pile of rats, so yeah, I think Nadja probably has the most interesting power set. Do any of these pose a threat to the paladins? Well, I mean, maybe in the hands of more, competent vampires. We'll see. I really don't have to make a big deal about this, but yeah, they have fangs. And boy, do they use them. So long as we're not talking about the Baron, they look indistinguishable from humans. I didn't notice any pointed ears or anything like that. I don't get a good sense for how often they need to feed, but they don't seem to have any issues getting blood. We learned in the first episode they have multiple victims down in the basement, and apparently they're prone to not finishing one before starting another. From what I can see on screen, the vampires don't seem to need that much blood. In one instance, Laszlo and Nadja feed on a man who's a huge jerk to them, and they basically rip him apart in midair. With the amount of blood that falls down, raining on the deceased's presumed girlfriend, we can see they don't seem to care about wasting blood. Furthermore, we see that Guillermo, when tasked with getting food for the biannual vampire orgy, only procures a single virgin. Given how much crap Guillermo takes from all three of the vampires in that house, not counting Colin, I can't imagine they'd let him get away with undersupplying their orgy, so I guess one virgin is enough to feed some 2 or 3 dozen vampires? They all seem to have just, all the classic vampire idiosyncrasies. Sunlight? Poof. Kills him dead. Stakes? Done. Crosses? Can't get near them. In fact, just crossing your fingers messes with them. Actually, it's funny because they are super sensitive to pretty much all Christian iconography in a way that just feels like a parody of the vampires I know. And I guess it is, so They can't enter churches without bursting into flames. Holy water turns them into crispy critters too. Heck, they can't even say the words God or Jesus.
Look at the pictures on the glass. It's the Jeepers man.
Here's the weird ones I really like, though. First off, not only do they not appear in mirrors, but they don't appear to conduct electricity, by which I mean electronic screens and touchpads are unresponsive to them. It's possible their bodies are too cold for heat-sensitive screens, or perhaps they just don't conduct for some reason. They also can't eat human food. It immediately and violently disagrees with them. But my favorite thing about them? They can't enter a building without permission.
Excuse us.
Can we come into the shelter?
We're open till 11.
Okay, that's great. We see that. Can we come in?
Yeah, come in.
Without that, they're stuck. Okay, really? Do I need to really explain my thinking on this one? Okay, so when I originally did Dracula, I gave him a threat level of 2, and let's be honest, he deserved a 1. Why? Because during the day he was a sitting duck. You could open his coffin and he didn't respond. He just laid there and let an octogenarian like Van Helsing drive a stake into him. These guys seem to have all the same weaknesses as Dracula, more even, and none of the cunning. Sure, under the right circumstances, they could probably kill some people, but honestly, even a rookie paladin should be able to handle Nandor and his friends. Nandor the Relentless, I love you, man, but you get a threat level 1. It's a miracle you haven't killed yourself yet. I don't see you posing much threat to a trained paladin. But who knows? I haven't seen Season 2. Maybe that's when we see his amazing battle prowess. Okay, so, yeah, everything I said about Dracula. Same goes here. Now, Nandor and company do seem to be conscious and capable of thought during the day, but still, they're very confined. We see how little it takes to bring one down. Stakes work, holy water works, sunlight works, crucifix work. Heck, crossing your fingers works. Tracking them down won't be too terribly hard. They need a regular supply of victims, but they also really prefer virgins, so that helps us narrow it down. Also, we know they aren't keen to move, and they've been on Staten Island for 200 years. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say these guys definitely give off dark energy, so I think we can find them.
All right, I can feel his energy. It's very dark and angry, and I think it's pointed at you guys.
They have to return home every day, even if they're being chased. They can't escape into a random building without being invited. I really don't think I need to go too far in depth on this one. Hell, I'm half convinced if they panic and flee the Order, they'll kill themselves. But if I were to really think it out, yeah, Christian iconography, holy water, and stakes. It shouldn't be terribly hard. Single parish deployment. Determine their location, then lock it down. Simple staking should be more than enough, but include crucifixes and holy water in your loadout. As always, make surrounding parishes aware of your quarry. Okay, I'm trying to be as serious as I can. That's what this part is for, but have you watched the show? I'm pretty certain we can send a toddler in with a sharp pencil and end these guys. Sorry, it's just really hard to stay serious around this lot. Yeah, stake them out and stake them in. Man, that was fun. If you haven't watched this show, I really recommend it. When I analyze a vampire, I usually have to watch the source material multiple times, and well, that third watch of Morbius can be painful. So can the first two, for that matter. But I was actively watching the show even as I wrote this script, and I didn't need to be. It's so fun, so dumb, and so well thought out. But that's Nandor the Relentless. Honestly, I'd probably want to try making friends with him rather than getting him staked, but, you know, that's the job. What did you think? Was I too harsh on him? At threat level 1 makes him officially the least threatening vampire on our list. We're over halfway through the year now, and we've got a nice, healthy lineup of undead bloodsuckers. Dracula and Edward, Domitresque and Morbius, Marceline and Louis, and now, the great Nandor the Relentless. Who's your favorite? Ooh, and who do you think we should do next month? Let me know down in the comments section. Oh, and if you're enjoying the Monster Menagerie, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. We've got a lovely little Twitch channel where we just hit our first follower goal. So look forward to some new channel updates over there. I might be getting a glow up if you catch my drift. And of course, you can catch us over at Twitter. And if you like this little world we've built with the Paladins, make sure to check out MatthiasTautimus.com to learn more and see some amazing artwork. Like our newest piece of Paladin Knight Giz Johansson. Credit to our amazing artist, Prissy. Once again, she knocked it out of the park. Find my links and hers down in the comments section. Well, I gotta get back to the archives. The fleshbound tomes need their weekly allotment of blood or they're gonna get really cranky. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's hiding out there. Thanks for helping me with the intro, by the way.